All right, being 4:30, I'd like to call the finance and personnel meeting to order. Yesterday, there was a amended agenda sent out. So can I get a motion to approve the amended agenda?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. First on the agenda is a presentation of the 2020 library annex budget. Ann?
Why don't you go sit next to John? How does that work?
Hello.
How's it going?
Okay.
And Fred too. So as you can see, we have a new budget, one that separates anticipated expenditures in the annex side versus the present library. Judy, Chad, and I sat down and talked about it, and you can see that we also included all the wages, all the fringes, all of the information that you might need to see, the 3 new part-time people, the full-time people, minus the 1 retiree. And then we added $10,000 for buildings and grounds, and we added some maintenance, building maintenance.
So what you're seeing here is if Anne were to present her 2022 budget, and the person who, the retiree were to continue into 2022, that's what the first column is. So saying that individual would not retire in 2022, what would that budget look like? And so that's what we are showing, or Anne showing in the first column. What she's doing in the second column is she's taking out the retiree and then shuffling those dollars amongst the red items. So those are highlighted in red, and then there are some items in blue. And then anything that changed from one year to the next, there's an explanation next to it. So let's say, so you can see the salaries were at $209,000. The salaries drop because the individual who is retiring is a salaried employee. And you can see that the replacement of those salaries were pushed between wages, building and ground, and wages, miscellaneous wages, and fringe benefits. So because the fringe benefits dropped, you were able to put those dollars into wages. So 105 went to 65 because you lose a health insurance. It's a lot of money when you're talking about budgeting. And then 129 dropped from 209, and those were shifted into wages. Miscellaneous wages, actually it paid for some
Yeah, I
electric.
was going to say it also paid for the electricity, the insurance, telephone, and heating. Not the telephone, the heating. Heating, water, electric, sewer, and insurance.
And on the sheet, the salary is a full-time, wages are part-time.
Correct.
The full-time person, yes, went to
Right.
all part-time
So
wages.
everybody knows the salaries indicate the full-time lines.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Wages
yes,
are indicating the part-time
Yes.
employees.
correct.
So what they're doing in order to put individuals over at the annex building is they're going to be hiring 3 more part-time employees versus the 1 full-time employee, which will
Correct.
give them, one of the concerns always is how many people are going to be in that building at one time. And Ann says there will be 2.
No, there will always be 3 people in the new building.
3 people.
1 in the teen area, 1 in the STEAM area, and 1 at the reception computer area. There will be 1 full-time, 1 person at the other building with a page from 4 o'clock till 8 o'clock. And then before 4 o'clock, people will be switching back and forth. So the people who are now working, so all the people that are working now in that old building will be switching back and forth between the 2 buildings. So sometimes they'll be at the old building, sometimes they'll be at the new building. So that's what I tried to reflect with the salaries, because the salaries, we're not hiring any salaried person. But some of the salaries are going to be at the annex because those people who are salaried will be working there.
What are your expected hours at this annex?
9 to 8, single hours. But we won't have some portions. So like the STEAM area, those areas will only be open from 3 to 8. The teen area will only be open to teens from 4 to 8 after school. The rest of the building, the meeting area, the computers, the small meeting rooms will all be open 9 to 8. And I talked to Fond du Lac Public, who has the STEAM area about the same size that we have. That is how they handle it. They have.
So there'd be 3 full-time or 3 people at that. So
Well, from 3 o'clock on, yes, 3 to 8. So one person, could be 2 people because we'll be running programs over there. Could be another person if the computers get busy, we could have another person come over. There will be easily being switched between the 2 buildings.
Like, are in the crew when they go back and forth across the street?
Yes,
But they're still,
Still the same number of people.
yes,
Regardless of what building you're in.
correct. Kimberly lives to they had 2 separate buildings. They had 1 board, but the people that work there went between the 2 villages. They no longer do that, but they did that for 20 years. That's how I saw it. Back and forth between the 2 buildings.
Another area that should be highlighted is building and ground wages. We were really concerned or had discussions about that dollar amount within the budget. And as we discussed it, it doesn't matter if it's here or it's somewhere else, the city still has to come up with the money. So instead of, being at a stop as far as what the budget looks like, they added additional dollars, $10,000 to hire somebody to contract out to take care of the cleaning of that building. That way the city wouldn't have to hire someone, or the dollar amount in the budget as a whole will not have to change. The other thing to point out is that overtime is gone, so they will no longer be doing overtime at the library.
That was actually for Sunday hours. So we will not be open Sunday.
And then when you look at the final 2022 budget with full-time versus not, the actual increase from the library to the library/annex is about $8,600, or 87, I should say. And that's a positive number. So I guess at the end of the day, when we went down and we actually detailed it out, looking at a $500,000 budget, looking at a new building, $8,700 or even $8,700 really isn't a great percentage of a total. So just a second look at their budget and trying to clarify any questions. So if you have any questions for Ann or any line item in particular that doesn't look like it makes sense to you, please ask.
Judy, what did we, 2021, how much did city funds go to the library? How much did city funds went to support it?
They receive county aid in the amount of, what do you see? again, Ann?
249.
249, so you can take $249,000 off of, so let's talk whole numbers, $300,000.
That comes up from now also.
That comes from all of the townships around us. Any person that lives in a township or town comes into the library, we get actually we get 100% the cost of our circulation. That does not include capital. It just includes expenditure. So You take that 542, no, actually, you'd only take the amount the city pays.
Where's that Owls organization come into play?
Now, Owls is a pass-through.
Okay.
So they're the ones that come and ask you for the money. They're the ones that have all the circulation statistics. So they're the ones that could put all that package together and say, this is how much we want Wapaka County to pay us. And then they divvy it up between the
But over and
libraries.
above that amount, how much has the city thrown in this past year? Anything?
So, yeah, so their budget is 542,000. They receive
249.
249,
From
so
the city?
$300,000
From
in
the-
round numbers.
From the city of Milwaukee.
Correct.
300,000 comes from the city. 249 comes from Wapaka and Outagamie, mostly Wapaka.
Township.
Okay, so the big discussion we've had in the past was we wanted, somebody wanted the city to kick in 250,000 a year for 5 years
That's coming next.
Yeah.
That's a capital.
for the cap.
request.
Oh,
All right.
okay.
So
Not
we're-
5
we're
years,
just-
3
What we're
years.
trying to clarify, or what Ann's trying to clarify to the committee right now, is the operational side of the budget, not the capital side.
Okay, okay.
So
pardon me.
what would the operational side of the budget look like if that building existed? And how could they shift things around to pay for the new building?
Concern I have is, it looks like the person that is retiring was making $80,000 a year, $40,000 in fringe benefits. It's $120,000. Is that not, it sounds like a pretty important position. Don't you need to fill those shoes?
Actually, she wasn't making that much money. She was making 80, something like that, with the benefits and that. And yes, the person that is retiring is very important cog to our operation, but she mostly did circulation and she did data entry. She does not do programming. She is not a librarian, so to speak. She's not doing any of the programs. So yes, she is, but she's doing mostly circulation. She does do some, she does our collection development as well. But the adult services librarian will take that over. So yes, she's very important. Never say that she's not. She's been with us for a very, very long time. It's kind of like the DPW guy who's retiring. She has a lot of knowledge. So yes, we will miss her greatly.
So you don't plan on replacing?
Not as a full-time, as there'll be 3 part-time. That's where I'm creating the money, yes. Because we need bodies to fill the spaces.
So it's $8,700 more a year for both buildings. When,
For 2022, I mean, then
yeah,
you're gonna have 2% raises or whatever,
right.
but yes. Mhm. And I spoke to other libraries who have the size of library that the present library is, that first floor, and they run it with one person off. So we will have a page there who is usually a high school student, sometimes an adult, who puts away the books. So we will have 2 people in the building at all times.
I know you guys were talking about replacing the roof on the current library. How many years has that roof been on that library?
A long time.
90 something?
Yeah, almost 100 years. I
Because I'm
think
sure if we build this building, we're going to have to replace the roof in 20 years. There's going to be new carpeting. There's going to be a lot of upkeep beyond just the day-to-day operations.
Sure.
Just like any building, you're
Just
gonna
like
have those
Gonna say,
periodic HVAC replacements and roof replacements and things like that. So yep, those will be coming down the line as, capital improvements needed, just like any other building. This is just like Judy said, was talking about the operating side of things. I guess our biggest concern was looking at this, we didn't want to see a $100,000 increase in operations that we couldn't sustain. When Ann comes back and shows us, and we look through these numbers, and when we see it's, 8,000, maybe a $10,000 increase, I mean, that's, for getting 2 buildings, that's not too bad.
We blow that
But-
off in fireworks.
To your point, there will be capital.
Yeah, we're not
It's
gonna
down
have
the road.
fireworks next year.
Any other questions about the operational side of the budget? The library, should say the library / annex 2022 budget.
Okay. Thank you, Ann. This is a lot better presentation than the last one. It's a lot more detailed yeah. and you can actually wrap your head around it.
Okay, like I said, at the last one, I assumed you were more concerned with the salary and wages.
Yeah, no, this is
Because
good.
that is 75% of our weight of our budget. So
I think you guys are all going on a
thank
diet
Chad and
over there.
Judy for Clarifying for it.
You guys are all on the diet over there then, the way it looks, huh? Cut the
Well,
fat.
All right, next up is an example of a tax implication with the referendum. Judy?
All right, so I know one of the things that a lot of people have been talking about is if, so we're talking about the annex at this time, or that's being brought up, but I'm not doing this for that purpose. There's a lot of tonight that's going to be educational as far as a committee is concerned. So what does it look like for the city of New London to take part in a referendum? And I'm not talking about the functional side of it. That's Nicole's job, and that's a lot of work. To actually prepare for a referendum as a city is a lot of work. And then to do the paperwork and the necessary information that needs to be done to get to the taxpayers is a whole nother side. What I'm talking about is, what does it look like if the city of New London went to referendum? And my example is $500,000. So what if the city of New London went to referendum, the citizens said, yes, city of New London, we want you to take out $500,000 to pay for that project, whatever that project may be. What would that look like on a tax bill? So this is the most important part. I'm sure your neighbors are going to say to you, what did you do and what am I going to have to pay for this? Because that's what they want to know. So my example says, so we take out $500,000 in debt over 10 years and pay that back at $50,000 a year. And my first example uses a $200,000 home. When I took the assessed value, so these are all the things that play into that. What's our current assessed value? What's our current tax levy? How many years, how much debt? So all of this is the knowledge that you need in order to take a look at what that increase is going to look like. So we have our base year. So this is what it looks like today. So if we had, we currently have a tax levy of 3,735,371. Our current assessed value, so our tax rate is 9.43 or 0.943 per thousand. And our home value is $200,000. So our current tax rate without the referendum or without the approval of the $500,000 would, that taxpayer at $200,000 would pay $1,885.69. Now, remember, I'm talking about city tax rate. When your tax bill comes, you have the county on there, you have, well, not the state anymore, but the county, Fox Valley Tech, and the school district. I'm talking about just the city of New London tax rate. We don't control anybody else's tax rate, just our own. So then we have a $50,000 principal payment you need to make in that year. $15,000 would be the interest side. So that's $65,000. So you got to bump up your tax levy, $65,000. So we're going to go to 3.8 million. Same assessed value, brings your tax rate up to 9.59%. Again, the same $200,000 home. So that referendum each year, now remember, each year is going to decline because your interest is going to decline, because as your principal goes down, so does your interest side. This is going to be the most that you're going to pay. So the difference between for a $200,000 home for that $50,000 payment plus the $15,000 interest is $32.81. That's the increase that homeowner would see. And let's just say it's constant for 5 years, to pay for a $500,000 capital item. Now, if the home was $150,000 home value, it'd be $24.61. $100,000 home value, it'd be $16.41. Is that 15 or 6? $16.41. Sorry, my vision plays with me sometimes. So, again, educational only. You just need to, understand how a referendum works and what the implications of those are. Then what I did down here is I said, okay, what if we paid back $100,000 a year? What would that look like? And as you can see, it just about, well, not quite doubles, because what happens is your interest rate goes down. So if you do it for less years, you're not paying 3%, you're paying 2.5%. So then in this example, if you're paying back $100,000 a year, then your tax rate difference would be 50, or the difference in that $200,000 home versus the base year, you're going to increase it 56.79. But also remember that you're paying it back twice as fast. So $150,000 home would be $42.59 and $100,000 home would be $28.40. Does that make sense to everyone? That's what it looks like. So referendum, you add that value right onto the tax levy. So we calculate everything else and then we add the referendum at the end. So you set your budget and it's an addition to what else you are going to do.
So when was,
What are the current debt percentage? Tells the term you use.
Our current debt, like how much capacity we have left.
How much have we used?
So we're probably at about, I guess I should put that with
That's
me.
service percentage.
Right, we're less than 0.5%,
Less than
50%, about 50%.
50.
Yep, so we do have quite a capacity, yeah, yes.
I thought you could go over 25%.
No, you can't go over a third of what your capacity is. So you want to keep at least a third of your capacity. So even though we're at 50%, you can't go up to more than 67%. Otherwise you can't bond and your interest rates are really expensive. So yeah, you can go over 25%.
Good shape there.
Yes, we are actually, compared to other communities, the city of New London has a lot less debt than our surrounding communities. Thus, we're going into, as we know, the downtown and Oshkosh Street. So although we're paying off very quickly, we're going to see that go back up with those two projects for sure.
So when was the last time the city actually even had a referendum? Was that the Grand?
It was the Grand Theater.
1996 or 7 or something?
Probably about that time period. And I believe that was a 10-year and $500,000. I feel like it was $500,000. Yeah, I went through that one, that referendum. Referendums are an educational piece. It's all at the beginning. So if you're going to do a referendum, that's where it starts is, and we've all been through the school district referendums and seen all of the information that's provided. So, yeah. What you do at the beginning is extremely important when you go through a referendum.
Do we have any idea what the school tax portion is going to be? That looks like it's going up or going down.
I have not heard anything about that yet. I wouldn't expect it to be honest with you, because I think schools had, with the COVID shutdown, I just feel like they hadn't expensed a lot of those funds. Plus the state is pushing a lot of funding into the states or into the schools right now. So I would expect it to stay steady or even drop a little bit. But don't quote me on that because I'm not. They did not go out to referendum, so there's no changes there. I know they just did some building improvements in the last couple of years. So as far as I know, I would expect that to stay pretty steady.
Well, there was that big, Bob, that big referendum that the school board had 3 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
Because they had all these jobs they were going to get done in the short term before interest rates really jump.
Yeah.
was a couple roofs and a couple of expansion of
Parkview.
Parkview
Yep.
and so forth. So
That, a lot of that got paid off like 2 years ago, was it? The tax?
That was the school itself. So
School
that was
itself.
built in 1999.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, that school was built in 1999. That's how long ago that school has been put
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
So I only know that because it was the year my daughter was born.
Yeah.
So,
And that came off the tax bill. It was like 2 or 3 years ago. wasn't it?
yes,
About the
Mhm.
same time as the referendum went on.
correct.
The 15 million they, for buildings and stuff.
Huh?
They didn't do a referendum, they just used that one.
Right, they just used the increase, right, yeah. The decrease. Yeah, they didn't go through
And I don't,
they did for the building, not for the,
Oh, for the building, yeah.
yeah, not the
well, they
improvements.
combined a bunch of things under that one
Yeah.
big one. Yeah,
They had something for the technology or something. We were going to use 35,000.
that was in
Here or
there too, I
something.
think.
That might have been on that.
Yes, that was on there also.
At their most recent meeting, it appeared that they're pretty well off as far as the financial picture is pretty good because of that, those
Yep.
improvements and, energy efficiency projects they've done. They were talking a lot
they,
about.
they waived all the fees this year too, so I can't see them raising taxes after
I
they
just
waived
don't
all the
think,
fees.
yeah,
They've put themselves in a good position.
Yes.
We're lucky that
Mhm.
they've done that. So.
All right,
any more questions on that?
all right, thank you, Judy.
You're welcome.
Now on to number 4 and 5 together. Review a working foreman Parks Division job description and review a working foreman Streets Division job description. Chad, Ginger, and Luke.
Yep, so we can take that one. So in your packet, you were given a draft
Oh,
copy of,
sorry.
nope, you're fine, working foreman parks and working foreman streets. As you recall, when we offered Luke the interim public works director position, we had to figure out a way to backfill the street park superintendent. Sitting down with Ginger and Luke and really talking about how we wanted to do this. My goal was, and when we offered Luke the interim to give him the shot to evaluate the job and for the city to evaluate him, I didn't want to set us up in a way that we backfilled his position. And then if it wasn't right for him or he wasn't right for the job, he didn't have the opportunity to go back. So we didn't want to lose Luke. So this is a way to fill the position in a temporary fill for the most part, to allow Luke to kind of go through the process to get up to speed being the interim public works director and see if it's right for him. So talking with Ginger and Luke, instead of hiring somebody and saying, hey, it's a 12-month position, you're out of here in 12 months, really don't want to do that. So the next option was to bring up somebody within the park side and bring up somebody within the street side, just to kind of be that supervisory role for the period of time that Luke's in his probationary period, to kind of run the cruise. Ginger and Luke will still be very heavily involved, more so in the day-to-day operations than we would have if a superintendent was there all the time. But this gives us the opportunity to have some supervisory duties down there as in a foreman position to fill those duties for Luke's probationary period for 12 months. And then at that point in time, we would still go back once Luke does feel that it's right for him and he wants to stay and the city does give him the full-time job as the director. Then we would go back and fill the street park superintendent like we had. We both think it is still important to have that single chain of command down there for both the street and park side to go to. That's still important. But this is a way to do a temporary thing instead of hiring somebody for a 12-month gig and then letting them go after 12 months. So that's why you see two different position descriptions there. And then Luke and Ginger, if you want to pipe in if I missed anything or if you guys have any questions, that's where we're at right now.
Sit right here.
Sorry, you covered it all.
You don't think this will spread you too thin anywhere, you two guys, or you two?
We're in the process of hiring for Mike Buckman's position as well. So once we get that taken care of, then we'll be better.
Yeah.
But still, I can't say that we're not sure yet.
Sure, you're both gonna be quite busy this next
Right.
year, but.
Yeah.
On my side, it's kind of, it's definitely was a concern with me because as the superintendent, I'm in the machines as well. I'm not just driving around in a truck, making sure everybody's doing their job. So, yeah, there's some added stresses there, but I think the guys are well equipped to handle. From a snow standpoint, I guess I'm more concerned, but I think we'll be all right. We're not gonna risk services.
If I may interject just a little bit. One of the things I really like about these two positions, and Chad and I, we had visited about this, and I'm not sure that I think you guys are in that conversation, or at least Ginger was, is it gives a parks employee or Department of Public Works employee a chance to see what that job feels like. And on the basis of not really having that interim job, but kind of feeling it, feeling it out. So that way, when the position opens up, they have a little bit of feel for what that position would look like. And they're a little bit more willing to apply for the position or move themselves up in the organization. And it makes it feel like that's the kind of organization that we want to be. So let's take a look at our internal employees and they'll get a little feel for what is it going to feel like if I were in the supervisory position, and then put themselves maybe in the position to apply for that job. I think it's always good that your employees know that you're looking at them, or that they would have an opportunity if the opportunity arises.
Very well said. Absolutely.
And to piggyback off that, we have talked about having these roles as a foreman position in our, in our chain. So we talked about this when Abel was here, and then Abel left and Luke came on, and it fell kind of on the back burner for the time being. So, as we move forward and we fill the, superintendent role again, we might consider of making this, it is labeled as a temporary gig right now. But we can come back and say, hey, is that something that's going to help our operations, just having another level of supervision there, especially when especially when the superintendent is off on vacation.
Right.
Then you know who's in charge down there yet. Whereas, if the superintendent's gone right now, not that it's free for all, but Luke's got to, decide who's going to be the lead person for the day. So, but what you're seeing right now is a temporary role, just to backfill the superintendent roles for the time being.
How does it look for retirements and stuff? I mean, within, say, the next 2 years? As far as
2
the
years
streets
down
and
there,
parks.
2 years, the next 2 years, what are we looking at retirements in the street and park side?
Mark Oss is talking about next fall. Nothing is set in stone. Pat Guyette is, I'd say, within 3 for sure. Those are all just, it's, obviously not set in stone, you just kind of hear it here and there, thoughts. Other than that, when Visa would be, he's talked to me probably 9-10 years now. And then we've got me and a younger few guys.
Just curious if we're gonna have somebody take the other guy's places when you guys like the plow drivers, snow plow drivers, which I'm thinking is critical, as long as you got guys to do them jobs.
I don't think we'll have a mass exodus of 50-75% of the people down there. It's getting to be
That's spread out
onesie,
pretty good.
Yeah.
and then another couple of years, another onesie. So, which is ideal if
Yeah.
the retirements.
All right, I need a motion to approve the working foreman park division job description.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Also need a motion to approve the working foreman street division job description.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And just so I'll clarify on those motions that those are both temporary positions.
All right. Finance Director monthly reports. Judy?
All right, so I'm probably going to go through these quite quick because not a lot of things have changed from last month. I don't know why it was way over there.
What does it do?
Come back here. And I prefer to go to this one because it's a little bit more detailed. And we are halfway through the year, believe it or not. So as far as this presentation is concerned, 50% is about where we should be. And as you can see, insurance is the one that's high. And like I've always said, we pay that at the beginning of the year. So it is going to be high and it'll come back down. We bill the utilities for portions of that. So you're always going to see that that one's a little bit higher. Another one I want to point out to you. So remember I was saying equipment replacement was looking like it was not doing well? Well, I took a look at that account and we had the phone system in there that is partially paid through designated funds. Missy and I got together and I said, something doesn't look right about the computer side of this because it was just exploded. And so I moved those dollars into the equipment replacement. Now you can see that at 114%, but we are using some designated funds for those projects. So you're going to see that one go over and I have no concern about that whatsoever. But now your equipment maintenance makes way more sense than it used to. And we are just a little bit over. So that has all settled down only because I had some things that should not have been in the maintenance item that should have been in the replacement. Sorry, I apologize for that. It was driving me crazy too. I probably lost a lot more sleep over that than anyone else did, but I got it figured out. Something didn't smell right. So I took probably a fifth look at it. Sometimes it's amazing how you can look at something so many times and finally it's like, oh, there it is. Debt service, we just have a few, probably a couple of payments left. That's why with that one's high. It's not that we're going to go over. We just paid more in the beginning months than the end months. Does anyone have any questions on that in particular? Any item?
The only one that stands out to me is the capital projects way on the bottom.
Well, because most of that is done in the summertime. So the projects that we were doing so we have some sidewalk in there, we have some street repair construction in there. We have, what are our parks projects that we're doing? So we usually will see this very small until summer gets over because most of those capital projects are done in the summertime. And then believe it or not, it can take months for them to bill us. So we will see a lot of this flatten out October, November, even December sometime, and even into January sometimes, depending on when we get those projects finished.
Yeah, the patching projects, the injector pit for the senior center. Injector pit should be done, right? Senior center? Was that done yet? Security cameras, we haven't done yet. And the gym doors were done. They're not done maybe. So there's a bunch of projects that are pending yet.
So that's why that one, it will get spent. It just takes us usually through summertime to get through those. Any other questions on this side, the expenditure side? All right, then we'll move in. There used to be a little tab here that I could go backwards in. Where'd that thing go?
Not in there.
I'm just gonna go right back to the top. And then we will go to the revenue side. And again, I don't have any concerns at this time. Our tax revenue will be at 100% after, so they're collecting now through July 31st. And then they have to settle with us August 15th and we get settled in full. So you will see this at 100%, not next time, but in August. So 2 more finance agendas from now. Tax equivalents, that's the biggest one of that is what the utility pays us and they present that check usually November or December. Again, one coming late in the year. Shared revenue is also, we just received our July payment, so that will not get booked till next month. And then the biggest portion of that comes in November. So most of our, big dollars on the revenue side come in later in the year. You're more cash flush at the end of the year than we are at the beginning of the year. And there's a big history on that, but I'm not going to bore you with that right now. The biggest one on here that I'm sure you're all gonna point to is interest, and we do have some funds that are doing better than this 4.9%. So I'm hoping at the end of the day that we can come to fruition with this $64,300. And I think we'll be okay at the end of the year. I just have some investments that I don't book until year end. So you'll see those in February when we're doing our annual one versus a monthly one. I don't do it every month because it fluctuates in value with the market. So then up, down, and we just don't want to have to do that. Any questions on any other?
I was just wondering if you could explain what highway aid is.
Okay, so that's the money that is sent through the state of Wisconsin for highway aids. And it doesn't particularly mean just highway aids, highway maintenance, anything that has to do with highways. And as you know, we don't have any highways. So it means our county, our city roads, but the state calls it highway aids. And that's aids through the state of Wisconsin, determined by the state of Wisconsin. Has a formula that they use for every single town, city, village, and they have a pot of money that they designate every year. And then they use this formula, and then they decide how much money you're going to get. And some of that has to do with how much money you spend. So as a community, and it's a 3 or 5 year rolling average. So as a community, you do yourself no justice if you're not spending any money on your road repairs at all, because that helps bump up highway aids as you go from year to year to year. I believe we did see an increase in highway aids as far as a chunk of dollars that the state put aside this year. So I'm anticipating that for 2022, we're going to see that go up again. But you're not going to see dollar for dollar spent on local roads, like always put $600,000 into Wyman Street, because it also goes to pay for internal maintenance of roads. So salaries and things of that nature also. I can show you in the budget process, you're going to see how much is operational and then how much is capital. And it's very clear. I mark those very clearly. Highway aids operating, highway aids capital. So that's where that money comes from. That's a state aid.
And the other thing, Tim, on the highways, like Main Street and Highway W, for example, part of the responsibility to maintain that goes to the county, part of it to the city.
Mhm.
Kind of shared there from both sources.
Does that make sense?
So 100% of it goes towards the roads, just not to the roads. It goes to the public works
You are correct.
salaries and stuff.
Yeah,
Snow removal and all the other things that.
right. That it takes to
encompass
maintain a road.
roads.
Thank you for explaining that.
You're welcome. Any other questions on that? All right, then we'll move into assigned and unassigned. And this has, I'll show you where that assigned money is that's going to be used, just because I talked about it right here, the phone upgrade. So that was over by, I don't remember how many, it was at over 100%. This 45,000 right here needs to go in there. And I make those adjustments also on an annual basis, not every single month. So that's why you're gonna see that one go over. And there was one more in here that's used, the technology one, this $13,500. That's the other portion. So both of those dollar amounts were in maintenance versus capital. So that was my fault. I actually, Missy asked me where to put them. I told her where to put them, but it was wrong.
So Luke, it wasn't you spending too much on maintenance. I
No,
guess.
it was me.
I wish I could have said something because she said she lost sleep.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He was coming in, oh, we gotta fix this. I'm like, Luke, you gotta stop. We're too far."
I told you not to slow down. I did tell you not to slow down, didn't I? Yeah. Yeah. Aren't you glad you're here tonight?
Absolutely.
You'll sleep like a baby. All right. So that is assigned and unassigned fund balance. Any questions on any of that? Nothing has changed from last month. So then we're at wheel tax. So then we go to budget to actual, we're at 56,000. Shawano Street, I hope we can all see that there's diggers up there and that's being worked on. So we expect to see some of those bills, but you'll be shocked at how those lag when they're working on those projects. And then some anticipated projects from 20 for the future and with those dollars. Well, this one has a little blue on it. Any questions on wheel tax? And then capital bonding. So here we're moving forward on our projects with our bonding. Jail cells and toilets are finished, cabinets are finished. Warner Allen Road is still being worked on, as we all know. I think some of the roofs are done. I'm just not sure all of the dollars are in here yet.
There's some retainage, I think, still out there, at least for City Hall roof for the retainage. So we gotta bring that in.
And then here's that the library roof replacement. They couldn't get shingles this year. So that's gonna have to hold off till next year and hopefully we can get them then. And the Newton Blackmore Trail, is the county the one in charge of that and, or we do?
That's, we're still in engineering. We're working on design and permitting with the DOT and DNR. That's gonna be a 2022 project.
Okay.
We wanted it to be done this year, but just with the lag, getting the DOT and the DNR to bless everything and it'll be 2022.
So that's keeping track of our bonding. Any questions on any of those? And then if you want to know check by check, those are provided for you for sleeping material. Just kidding. There's lots of them. And I think that's it for that one.
Yeah, finance director's report. Judy?
All right. I completed so one of the big things that April Herms in our office and I get together during the month of July is our budget memo. So all of the department heads have received their budget memos and they are moving forward on their 2022 budgets. So you will see Department of Public Works and Park and Recs come forward, Park and Rec, not Park and Recs, be presented at their next meetings. So the 2022 budget will be presented to you at those meetings. So if you're interested in one or the other and you're not on the committee, you may want to attend those. I normally would not present, and I'm going to talk to Dave about this, my portion of the budget, but I might do it for 1 year if we decide that that's what I'm going to do. So we'll see where finance goes next time, but for sure that budget presentation, just so you have some kind of idea, is presented to you in October. So we have a particular deadline that we have to meet as far as publication is concerned. So I have to move backwards from that. Nicole and I work through that. But that actual budget the 2022 budget in full will be presented to you in October. And that is a special meeting. That's a committee of the whole meeting. I spent a lot of hours working through, as a number of us in the office, not just myself, through that TID 2, 3, and 4 development that's happening right now. So it's a very exciting time for the city of New London to be working through this. But as I'm sure you can all appreciate, that takes a lot of time for a lot of us in the office. Jay and I are working through the current We a Trust insurance carrier quote. I expect that to be in about the 16th of the month, and that's really important for budget purposes. I gave the department heads all a current budget of 12% increase in health insurance, but I'm hoping to bring that down to more like 8 once we get through that process. Let's see, I have a couple new funds I need to set up for the American Rescue Funds, which we'll be talking about at our next meeting, and then the 2 TID districts. All of that has to be accounted for separately. Still, I did actually finish my notary, so that when people come in, we can provide that service to them. There's a number of us in the office that are actually notaries. Our insurance renewal is due actually Friday, so I have a lot of that finished. Missy and I will be working on the cyber portion of that tomorrow, and I'll get that submitted tomorrow afternoon is my goal. And that has to do with more liability, employment practices, liability insurance, crime insurance, and cyber insurance. So all those kinds of insurance, not health insurance. I attended my first in-person meeting at Civic, so that was interesting to be around people again, although we're a small board, there's only 10 of us. But the actual annual meeting, their summer meeting coming up is going to, or the actual summer meeting was held virtually. It was just the board that came in together because there's not, obviously not as many of us. Also filling in for the human resource and payroll function as we have an employee out. And then working on gathering estimates, like I said, for the 2022 budget. And then I spent some time gathering information for the meetings that we are currently at. And a lot of other things, but there's the highlights for the month. Any questions on any of those?
Great. Thank you, Judy.
You're welcome.
You have any questions? If not, I'd ask for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Who was my second?
I don't think I have to do that. Motion carried, we're adjourned.
Dave, do you want to take a break or do you want to roll right into it?
That's what I was just wondering, do you want to take a break?
Yeah, go.
Or who's doing capital projects? Okay. We'll take, Jeannie, we'll take a couple minute break and then roll into the capital projects meeting. Rock and roll.
There you go. I'd like to call the capital projects meeting to order. Look for adoption of any changes to the agenda. Look for adopting an agenda.
So moved up.
Motion's been made and seconded to adopt the agenda. And I guess you'd be first up.
Yep, I guess.
You got to vote. You have to vote
Call the
on your
vote there,
motion.
Bob.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carried. And
So in your packet, I gave the piece of paper that had our capital request on it. And then I also included some other documents in there. One of them is a representation of some of the libraries in the state of how much their construction costs were and how much they had to fundraise and how much that was a percentage of the total cost, just to give you an idea of what typically happens. Also, you'll see that I gave a list of donors and then the total amount raised. And then Keller did a new timeline for us so that you could see what potentially could happen. And so our request, as you know, was $250,000 for the next 3 years, a total of $750,000. Which would represent 23% of the cost.
have any questions?
Yeah, what happens if we don't raise the rest of the money? If we commit 750,000 plus 1.7 is what, 2.4? We need 3.2.
Right, so you would pledge that $250,000. You wouldn't have to come up with it immediately. When construction starts, that's when we really need the cash. And I guess if we don't raise the rest, then we have a lot of money to return.
Will the city get their money back?
Well, yes, we will only use it we will only use it if the building is built. But I anticipate being able to raise the rest of that money.
And then I was just questioning who was on the hook for the other, whatever it is, 800,000 if it wasn't.
Right, we still are fundraising right now as we speak. We have a couple of, for sure, we have 3 or 4 letters out there right now to businesses. So as you can see, there's the US Venture, Amcor gave money. A lot of the community foundation is, of course, the Maryland Taylor Fund. Banks in town gave. So we still have quite a few people that we haven't talked to yet. As you know, as I've explained over the years, since the project changed, we had to go back and talk to all 60 some people to make sure they were still on board with this project, because what they had committed to was the other project down at the riverfront. So that took a considerable amount of time. Then we worked with Keller so that we could get some documents, pictures, the video, so that we could go out and talk to people about what this new project would entail. So that took a long time, and of course, we'll use COVID in there as well. So it's very difficult to meet with people during COVID.
Ever since I've been on council, all I can hear is the city doesn't have money. Would you, in the previous meeting, you talked about referendum. Are we doing a referendum for the 750,000, or would it just be?
So my suggestion is, I think the purpose, and correct me if I'm wrong, tonight is to show the committee the commitment that the community has to the library. And then to make a request of the committee of the $750,000. then, and for you to ask questions, to look at this, to say, okay, so, this is how other libraries and what other communities have done. And look at the information presented to you, ask questions about that. Then I think it's our job or the job of the committee to decide, not tonight. But, where are we gonna go with this? Because I think we owe it to them to make a decision. So then you call another meeting, committee of the whole meeting, and we say, and then you say to me, give me some options, Judy. What could we do to fund this? Give me something to look at and something to chew on, and then you make a choice. There are some opportunities out there for us the city to look at, and I would prefer Chad talk a little bit about that. But some of the things we're putting the horse before the cart, so you got to be really careful about what you talk about and what you commit to at this point. As you know, as a city this size, we have a lot of revenues coming in and a lot of other things going on right now, including our downtown, our two districts, Oshkosh Street. And we're looking at all this funding coming in, some ARPA funding. And you can't look solely at one area and say, let's do this or let's do that. I think it makes more sense to look at all these funding sources and say, could we pull a little from here and a little from here and a little from there? And make some common sense out of this. So I think as a committee, we should maybe leave here today saying, I see what's going on here. I see the commitment of all of these individuals to the library. We're about, and they're about how close to meeting their goal of $3.2 million. They're asking the city for about half of the difference. Does it make sense? They can make up 750,000 when they have a commitment at the bottom here. It looks like two donors of 400,000, almost close to 750 already, who are looking for the city to say, yeah, we're in, or no, we're not in. And then what does that level of commitment look like, and or what could it look like? Or maybe the city comes back and says, we can't quite, that's not going to work, but this is going to work. I think that's where we're at right today, just to kind of look at what's going on here. And then I think the committee needs to come back together, and then I can put together what I know, and we're going to know a little bit more in the next 30 days. It's just really hard to talk about things when you're not past certain times of passing things at the city level. So I feel like we'd be putting the horse before the cart if we said some things right now, because we haven't gotten to that point to be saying, something that we shouldn't, out of step. Yeah, take a look at this, ask questions of what are they presenting to you, think about it, and then we'll come back to a meeting and definitely have some other revenue sources, other ways to look at this besides $250,000 for 3 years. I mean, that's what they're asking, in a simple, this is what we're looking for, but there's definitely other options to look at as far as the city is concerned. I would suggest you take and absorb what they're saying to you about, this is how close we've come, 1.7 million. We have to get to 3.2. 750 is half of where we're at. We already have 400 of the other 750. How do you feel about that as a committee? Are we saying we're just all out? Are we, well, maybe we're in, but we need to really look at our revenue sources. And I mean, there's a lot of ways to look at this besides $250 for 3 years, to be honest with you. We have a lot of other things going on that can work to flow through this revenue side of this library.
I know there's a lot of things going on, but I mean, it's about time we make a decision where we're going.
I think that's
Up or
only
down,
fair.
yes or no,
Yep.
and move forward, because this can's been kicked around for what, 4, 5, 6, 10 years? I don't know. And it's getting frustrating for everybody involved. And I think it's about time we make a stand and get together, move forward on it. or drop the whole issue.
And just so you know, there is no motion on on the agenda tonight, so we cannot do that.
Okay.
But I really do suggest we're working through some very important things for the city right now that we all know is going to be finished here shortly, and we'll know at least one direction. And then we can, I think we call another meeting, a committee of the whole. I can present a lot of things to you at that time. I'm not gonna tell you that I'm gonna know all the answers, because again, revenue is fluid and we're always applying for grants and we're always looking for more revenue dollars. And ARPA funding, you know, maybe there's a way we could use some of that funding. So I would prefer that we keep the revenue side not discussed tonight, and that we take a look at a committee of the whole meeting and before we start budget for 2022, because things are going to get really tight here as far as timing is concerned. But after probably later August, I think we were talking about, what we were talking about is timeline, Chad, to come out of
Go ahead,
committee of the
Dave.
whole.
You got,
Yeah, I would like to come back with, because I'd really like to see this happen. I don't think it's, I think it's a great idea, but we need options on how, on the city end, we're gonna pay for this. I would like to come back at another meeting where you give us the options of how we're gonna pay for it, so we can look at it as a whole.
And I will bring you back a full referendum. And, you know, this is for me to present options to pay for, and then you to decide as a committee if you're going to pay for it, A, and how are you gonna pay for it, B.
I would like to see it happen.
I'd
I
just
think
like
it's
to
a
thank
great
the
idea.
library board and all the involved in, I mean, obviously they put a lot of
Yep.
time and hours into
Well,
this.
they work.
So really appreciate Ann and the rest of you coming forward. Let's
Me
give
too.
us a
And I
good
feel a lot
vision.
more comfortable after the presentation in the last meeting about what it's gonna cost long term.
I'd also like to point out that, you know, we're getting letters from businesses, constituents. You got 15, 20 of them right here.
Yeah, me
We
too.
hear you.
You got anything else?
And the point is, this was their first, I mean, they've hinted around at what the ask was. This is your first official ask of what they're looking at for the project. So now it's time to really absorb that. And then, like Judy said, let's get a committee of the whole, because that's the next appropriate spot to see that. That's the committee that's gonna say yay or nay, and then with the options that Judy was talking about. So basically, the consensus would be that, yes, you guys want staff to really look at crunching some numbers to see what some options would look like. With, like Judy said, the different revenue sources that we might have available to us to make this thing possible. If you guys are cool with that, nod your head right now, and then we'll come back and schedule a meeting on the whole to see where we're going.
Yeah, I think that's definitely where we need to go. I mean, that's the point we're at.
Anybody got anything else? Otherwise, thank you, Ann.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you, everybody.
But it's good now that you guys have the listing too of all the donors and stuff like that, so you guys can get a good feel of what the community has already provided to you. Show the support for this as well.
Judy,
Yes.
present current 10-year plan.
Yes. All right. So this is an educational piece too. Actually, most of tonight was more of oh my gosh, let's spit it out, Judy. Educational pieces for the committee. As part of our budget process, when I present to you in October, and then I was talking about the budget, I'm going to present to you an operational budget, and then we're going to set aside X amount of dollars for our capital budget. Okay, and then we come back to that capital budget, and all department heads, as part of their budget process, go through what's called a 10-year capital project. So it's not like we sit down and, you know, and in the 9th hour and we say, okay, we have this pot of money and what are we going to do with it? Every department, fire, police, Department of Public Work, Recreation, clerk, everyone sits down and they say, what are our capital needs? I just wanted you guys to see this, not for the first time, you know, next November when I pull this out and say, okay, here's our 10-year capital plan, and then we're down on year, you know, on the 3rd year. So here's what we get to decide tonight. So you can, I think it's really important you understand how much work that the department heads put in to think through what needs to get done at, for the city of New London. And a lot of that's done in your committee meetings. So Public Works and Parks, you guys go through this stuff all the time. You're talking about reprioritizing what needs to get done. So this is a fluid document. It doesn't mean in 2022, we're absolutely going to do this. It says, boy, it'd be really, really nice if we could get this project or this piece of equipment in 2021 or 2022. So we go through this process every single year, and the entire 10-year project is updated. So 2021, here's the highlighted items in this year's current budget that we could actually do. So now we get to look at what's left over and how are we going to reprioritize going into into the next 10 years. So you can't do everything, as you know, just like at home, there's some things you can do and some things you can't do. So we're constantly reprioritizing what we should get done this year. And we don't do it in a vacuum either. All department heads talk to each other. We discuss these things. We say, oh, this person, this department could use this more than this department. And we're constantly reprioritizing what's most needed for the city, not a department. So it's most important that we're moving forward as a city, not as a department. So I wanted you to just take a look at how this works and what it looks like. And I think that was it for presenting that. But one thing I would like to point out to you is obviously we don't have 1.7 million, 1.6 million, 4.3, 4.4 million. So when we're looking at this as a whole, in this public works right here in 2023, these are downtown projects, Oshkosh Street. We anticipate to push revenue bonding into this too. So this helps me decide, okay, what year are we going to bond next? Or when is our greatest need for bonding? And what can we pull out of capital to push into bonding versus this schedule itself? You can't put everything in bonding. What you buy from bonding has to last beyond the 20 years that you bond for. So not some of these things you may think you want to bond for, but you can't legally. So there's only certain things you can push into bonding. The best thing you can bond for is a road. One of the best examples. So I know some of you have seen this before, but I just wanted to show you how that works. And again, a fluid document. There's no reason you can't at your committee level say, I'd like to see this happen, and that happen, and they're added to the projects. But again, not everything is always done. We have limited resources and limited dollars. And then the next thing I wanted to show you, is there any questions on this? You will see this again. A lot of time, or most of this is presented. So sometimes I'll present operational budget in October. Usually by November or December, we will try to get together because sometimes vehicles need to be purchased prior to the end of the year because they take forever to get. I think the chief is out. He's not here. I think he's out a year. I think it took a year to get his last cars or something crazy.
I think he's still waiting, actually.
Yeah, it may be, yeah. So some things we'll do before the end of the year, and then we'll start working January and February, and we'll try to finalize that list by February, because otherwise you can't even get, done what you need to get done. And sometimes you have to go out to bid. So you have to have time in between projects. So you can't wait too long to approve your capital items from year to year. So that was just kind of an educational piece. I thought since we were holding a capital projects meeting, that it would be nice to actually at least see that once before November. All right, then I'm going to move on if nobody has any questions on that. ARPA funding. And my purpose of this is all over newspapers. I'm sure all the taxpayers have heard about the money that's flowing into this, all communities from the federal government. First time ever this has happened in history, that money has flowed into all of these organizations from the federal government. So what I'd like to do is kind of show you what the last development is. So this is kind of a neat little matrix that the federal government put together for us. And it shows you the way in which this funding can be used. And another thing I want to tell you before I forget is we've received half of the 749,000. This is in case people ask you these things. I want you to know these things. So we've received half of the $349,000 that we anticipated getting.
700.
700.
Yeah,
What did I say?
we received 300.
That's half. And the second half will come again in July of next year. So we will have all of the dollars, the $749,000 by the end of by the July of next year. The timeline for this is that we have until 2024 to decide, but I would not wait that long, and 2026 to spend. Okay, so that's the timeline. So if everybody's saying, what are you spending your ARPA money? What, it's not that, calm down a little bit, we got some time. So then we have this matrix that tells us how we can spend this money. And I'll tell you, when I look at this matrix, I cross most of them off. Some of these are things that we just, first of all, don't have the staff for. I think the state's job, the county does take care of these things, not their state's job, but the state takes care of these things. So the COVID-19 mitigation, there may be some items that we decide that we might want to do in this area. And one of the things I'll give you as an example is our window up front here. We've always wanted to put something more secure up there, and that would fit in this COVID-19 mitigation area because it separates the public from us. So they would consider that a COVID-19 mitigation project. Behavior, and then I go to behavior and healthcare. That's county. Payroll, we decided we were not gonna, or payroll for public health and similar employees. We don't have public health employees. Premium pay and retroactive pay, we are not going to take part in that. Workers and family unemployment, that's handled at the state level. Food, housing, financial, all of these things are handled, at the state level. Small business, now here's another one we're going to take a look at, and we may fit some items in the small business category. Okay. Impacted industries. This one also, the state is going to put a lot of money into this tourism area. Rehire public sector employees. We never lost any employees, and replace lost revenue. There's one I continue to look at because this one's fluid. So the first time I looked at it, we didn't have any lost revenue, but I can do it for the next 3 or 4 years. So we may at some point have lost revenue. Health, that's the county takes care of that. Homelessness, affordable housing, that county. Early, and you have to realize too, you need people to take care of this. So, it's not just the programs itself, but you have to have humans that are able to not only administer these programs, but administer them in a way that is correct. You can't just administer things and think you're doing things properly, because if you don't hit the right people or the right communities and all the kind, we're going to get ourselves in trouble. So I would leave some of this well enough alone at levels of which they know what they're already doing. And the county handles a lot of this stuff. And then here, educational disparities, that's our school district. And they also have received this funding for the same purposes. So it's not like we're leaving people high and dry saying the county has received their funding. The school district has received funding. So here we have childcare and, again, the county or the school district. Here's one we will try to find projects to fit into, and that's the water and sewer side. Broadband, the county is handling. Wapaka County is working on that. So like I said, most of these I would just X right out, and we're gonna focus on the COVID-19 mitigation, the small business, and then the water and sewer. So those 3 areas is where we're gonna focus to spend that $749,000. Chad and I have already been discussing some areas that we would like to see some of this funding being used for. What I would like to just provide with you is a really high level of ARPA funding today, and then come back in and like early next year. Once again, there is so much fluid revenue going on with the city of New London. We have LRIP grants that we're hoping that we will be applying for Oshkosh Street. We have a downtown money that we're hoping to get for Pearl Street, and we will be applying for that. We have this LRIP funding. We have the two TID districts if they go through. We'll have the funding from them. So it's hard to say today. So what we'd like to do is use ARPA funding in conjunction with everything else that we have going on with the city, and not just say, we're going to do ARPA funding for this, this, and this, and make it so concrete today that it doesn't make any sense to me to make those choices. And you're going to have communities that already have done that, but they don't also have all the stuff going on that the city of New London has going on right now. And as you know, we can't spend TIF money till we create the TID. So again, you're putting horse before the cart. So my suggestion would be is to kind of put off put off the choices of how we spend this until we can a little bit more concrete idea of how all these other revenue sources are going to play out in the next couple of months. The LRIP funding, I think we'll know by November, right, Chad? Is that their October, November? Is that what their timeline?
For
I
what
can't
time was
remember. The LRIP funding,
LRIP
it's a pretty
funding?
quick turnaround.
Well, we had a webinar today and they didn't indicate, I'm still trying to figure out that big bump of money, where that's coming from, if that's coming in LRIP or if it's coming from somewhere else. So the webinar they had today was basically just talking about how to log in and how to request. They didn't talk about
Okay.
anything about where the funding sources and the timelines and things like that are.
So see, this is the issue right now, is we're just getting hold of some of these revenue sources. And until we apply and we kind of know where that's coming in, I think that we're okay just kind of sitting tight with our we have the money and we'll be getting the second half next year.
And Judy, can't we use up there for the water and sewer, we can use that for street projects,
You bet.
correct?
Yes. So I also provided to you all of this question and answer, and I don't expect you to read it all, but I did. It tells you if you're asking certain questions about things. So when I go through this, I look, first of all, you have to know that it sits in 4 separate buckets. Like the money that you're going to spend has to be, there's certain eligible uses. So you have to know that it sits within those 4 eligible uses first. And then you can look at it and say, okay, so I'm on page 20. And this is a lot, okay? I don't expect you guys to understand or know all of this. I guess that's my job, but, so you go to page 20. And here's the 4 eligible source ways in which you can use this money. So to respond to the public health emergency, that was that one. Negative economic impacts. It's kind of these really huge 4 buckets. And then the last one says investments in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. And my question from day one was, well, does that mean the road? And so then you go to page 32. So I'm telling you in yes, because this was the one that I asked the question from day one was, okay, that's all nice and dandy, but here it is. May recipients use funds for road repair and upgrades that occur in connection with an eligible water and sewer project? Yes. That's all I had to read. Touchdown. So yes, as long as we're going in and we're doing sewer and water upgrades, the repair to the road also counts. So as you know, we're doing a lot of road projects right now. So again, there's all kinds of choices that are going to be made about where are we going to put our ARPA funding, which is a good thing. So where are we going to apply those ARPA funding dollars? And there's a number of other items in here that I guess I don't know if you had any other questions, but all of these projects too are kind of on the shoulders of us to decide that it's within the realm of the ARPA funding. Nobody's going to come here and tell me that, nope, you can't do that. So I definitely have to keep up my reading of all of these questions and answers, because they help you understand whether the projects you're going to choose are ARPA eligible. And that's really important that we keep up on that information. And that's why I read most, all of this. And then there's a lot of reporting that I'll have to do in connection with this money, probably continuously for a very long time. So But it is on our shoulders to know that our funding is, they're not going to tell us. And it says right in here, one of the questions says, is the federal government, can you ask the federal government if that project qualifies? No, you need to read the documentation and decide that. If an auditor came here, that I could explain to them why I chose. And if I was putting in a road, I'd say, well, question 6.15 says we could do this. So then I would have that as part of that project. I'd probably scan it right into one of the bills or do something. So if I wasn't around, somebody'd have that documentation. So as easy it is to deposit 749,000, as complicated it is to make sure that we, spend it in the area of which it was meant to be. So does anyone have any questions that anybody's asked you about ARPA funding that you would like to ask me about, or I can research for you? Yes, we can use it for the downtown. Yes, we can use it for Oshkosh. Yes, we can do, one of the things Chad and I were visiting about was downtown seating. So economic development wise, can you put in some seating down? Yes, you can use it for some of those things. So I think what we'd like to do is put together a list, but again, wait until we see some of our other revenue sources, put together a list and come back early next year and kind of say, okay, here's a list of things that we're thinking about using the dollars for. And then ultimately it's up to you guys, like, where are we going to put the funding? I know Chad has got a street that county's kind of pushing us for, but he wants to do some communication with them to make sure that when their timeline is for sure, and we'll know all that stuff for sure by early next year. Plus we'll know a whole lot of other things. Do we have 2 TID districts? Do we have 1 TID district? Do we have, ARPA or LRIP funding? Do we have funding for Pearl Street? So, anytime we get an answer to some of those questions, it helps us decide what are we going to do with this money. So any questions? Yep.
Can we use any for I&I?
Yes,
Yes, actually, yes.
sanitary, yes.
Yes, any sanitary is wide open. Anything
I
you
mean,
can.
this is one thing we're fighting right now is so much water infiltrating in here.
Yep, definitely.
That's just something I would like, if we haven't already checked.
Yep.
I think one thing that I think we should. be
To
checking.
piggyback what Judy was saying, like she said, we have all these different sources, we have all these different projects going on. So we've got the downtown, we've got Oshkosh streets in our sites, we've got the 5th Ward with the CGGB, we've got TID districts coming in, we've got bonding schedules that she's got to work on. We got a lot of things going on right now, and let's put them together and let's see where these things go. Like we talked about Mill Street. Mill Street really wasn't on our radar until the county came in, Outagamie County, and said, we want to redo that. But we were like, hold on, let's check our utilities underneath. We found out our utilities are not going to last another 20, 30 years. So that'd be another great scenario to maybe use those funds for. So I think like Judy was saying, we just need to put these projects on a paper and say, okay, we're gonna CDGB funding, we've got bonding, we've got ARP funding, we've got TID district money. How is this all game plan gonna work with all those revenue sources and all those expenses for those projects? So
When was Outagamie County? Was that next year, 2 years?
we've been pushing them off. They're at least till 23 or 24.
Oh, they are that far back
Um,
then.
We got to talk to them now. Hypothetically, if we use this money for that, then that could be getting that project done sooner,
Them on their-
potentially.
Get it on their budget.
Hopefully They can get on the radar, or we go to them and say, okay, hypothetically, how far out can we push you guys that you guys are comfortable in before the road gets to the point that you're not going to want, they want to get it done sooner than later. They're not going to wait another 10 years before they.
Because you're saying we gotta have a decision made by 24 with this money, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
So
So we need to talk to them sooner than later and say, okay, how far can we push you off?
Right.
Because if you guys want to use this ARP funding for downtown and not hypothetically for Mill Street,
Mhm.
how far off can we push off the county for Mill Street paving? But then how are we going to fund those utility improvements for Mill Street? Because we don't, I would not recommend at this point in time, knowing what the engineers talked to me, that if we would just have the county come in and pave Mill Street right now, more than likely, it's not gonna last. We'll be opening up for sewer repairs. It's not gonna last that long. It's not to the point it's gonna fail tomorrow, but it ain't gonna last another 20, 30 years. So we need to have those discussions to figure that out.
We've got to talk to utilities and make sure that they are set up.
Yeah,
Because they have to set a budget too,
yeah, yeah.
what they can do. I mean, that's what's holding up. One of the things that's holding up Mill Street right now is
Yeah,
talking,
It's funding.
that's, yeah.
both of us getting together.
And that's what we have to do is make sure all the guys get together because we don't want to tear a street up. Do it, if somebody do it and then come around next year and tear up the street again. So that's happened. We don't want that anymore.
Correctly, the utilities weren't ready to bond for that.
Correct. Utilities were
Right.
maxed out on bonding schedules.
Yeah,
That we were talking about maybe doing it like now.
Yeah.
But if we disturbed the ground, their water system is fine. If we disturbed the ground, replacing the sanitary system, they felt that would compromise the water side that would force it to be replaced. But they're not ready for that because they didn't have that in their sites either.
Right.
So we need to get that on the schedule to figure it out as well. A lot of moving parts, lots of years. We got to put all this stuff together. Lots of opportunities, like Judy was saying, lots of revenue stuff that we can, but how are we going to put it all together to make it all work?
It makes sense to do it that way, but on the same note, we all know the cost of everything every year, and not just health insurance, 12%.
Right.
Some stuff, some of this stuff, we'll see big
yeah.
increases. So at some point, it's never fun, but decisions got to get made,
Anybody have anything
Look
else?
at the options here. I think we're, like Judy and I were talking about and what she indicated, I mean, we're leaning towards that water and sewer infrastructure. That's something that would help our road system, which you guys have heard left and right.
Yeah.
We need to work on our roads. And maybe a little bit the COVID mitigation, but besides those two pictures, if there's anything else in that board you really want us to focus on, like Judy said, a lot of that stuff is being hit by the county or state. We're gonna be trying to probably focus on the water and sewer and maybe a little bit of that COVID stuff, but if there is something else you want us to hit on, let us know. Otherwise, I think we're gonna be talking about internally and putting this picture together with all these gears to see how that would work.
And if you have anyone asking you questions about, ARPA funding and you need anything answered, just call us. We'll be glad.
Don't even know what it is.
It's in the paper, yeah. I think they call it COVID-19 funding is what they call it, but that's not what it is. That we've received last year, so. A lot of people think that that's still the state of Wisconsin COVID funding, but yes, we got $127,000 last year for COVID-19. But it's getting a lot of attention in the papers, and that's usually when you get people asking you questions. So I didn't want you guys to not know what people are talking about. Like, how come, because I saw Clintonville's, what they were going to do with their ARPA funding is all laid out in the front page of the paper. So it was like, oh, geez, I really, you guys need to be educated so that if somebody comes up to you and say, did we get any money? What are we doing with our money? Because usually that's what happens then. They just want to know, where's our money? What are you doing with it? And those kinds of questions. So
If you say you're doing roads, you're gonna make a lot
There
of
you
people
go.
happy.
Yeah.
because basically, yes, because mostly that's what we're talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
Yes, when you're talking the big dollars. Mhm.
Anybody got anything else for Judy? Okay, we gotta schedule our next meeting.
I think we'll do that. We're not gonna do it tonight.
Okay.
We'll do that. We'll get we'll get past, the 2022 budget and we'll think about that in November.
Then we need to bring that back for the library stuff.
And we definitely need to schedule the, committee of the whole meeting. What were you thinking about timeline for that? I can't remember, like late August or September?
Yeah, I would say probably September. I'd like to see us get through the TID districts first and make sure those are set.
Yeah.
And that's not gonna be set till August 25th.
Yep, that's joint review board.
Yeah, I would like to get those TID districts done first and then
Because
Then
the
bring it
final of the joint review board actually decides whether those, if it goes through council and gets approved, then there's still another step. And the school is educating themselves on the TID districts. So they have the opportunity at that joint review board meeting. So it is, all of us together the Fox Valley Tech, the school district, the county and the city. That makes the final decision about whether that moves forward or not. So yes, but we will not know until after that joint review board meeting on 1 o'clock on the 25th.
25th sounds right.
That whether those are a go or not. So I would, yes, suggest that we know that that's a revenue source before.
So I would say sometime in September, early September, we can
Yep.
talk about doing the committee of the whole. And you could do it right after finance.
Finance,
personnel.
that's what I was just
September.
gonna say. Maybe that's a good, is that a good time for everyone? Right
Yeah.
after finance?
Most of you are here already, so.
Yeah.
What date is that?
Next finance meeting would be September 8th. Nope, yes, September 8th.
Committee of the whole.
So is that gonna be specifically for?
The
if-
decision on the library.
Oh,
Yep.
is that's another project that the costs aren't gonna, we need to get a decision on.
You got anything else? Look for an adjournment.
So move.
Motion been made and second to adjourn. All in favor?
Hi.
Opposed or adjourned?